Hello, my name is Andy Schmuckler. I describe myself as a man on a mission, and under that banner, I live stream every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, and the same on Thursday mornings. And then I also do occasional additional videos just on a fire when ready basis. I'm going to start on a personal basis in my reflections on human intelligence. Not that there's any need for that. The missions I'm on are actually pretty big picture that don't have any more to do with me than any other member of the human species. Well, one of them has got to do with the United States, and uh, part of the mission is how can American democracy be preserved and protected? Um, but an even bigger mission has got to do with how can human civilization get its act together so we don't destroy ourselves, which I think is too big of a possibility for me to be comfortable. And so that's why I'm a man on a mission. So, but I want to start on a personal basis talking about human intelligence because, well, part of my strategy, if you want to talk it, for using these videos to achieve either part of those missions is that I just want to be a real human being and be more credible for that. In any event, when it comes to human intelligence, let me say personally that I grew up in a family in which intelligence was more highly praised than I would say in the average family. I've observed that people in general tend to value most highly whatever the currency is that makes them look best. Um, if you're from a very wealthy family, people tend to think that the value of people is represented by how much wealth they command. If you're in an aristocracy, you tend to think that what makes people most valuable is breeding and knowing exactly how to behave according to some complex set of manners that only aristocrats master. Um, if you come from a religiously pious family, then the best people are the people who are God's people, who believe the right things, and so on. Well, my family consisted of two parents and two children, of whom I'm the younger of the two sons, and we were all people who could feel best about ourselves by valuing intelligence. It's always good to feel like you're what a person should be. But as I have pursued using such intelligence as I was born with, and as I've used that intelligence to explore why the human world is the way it is, and in particular, why it is plagued with as much destructive forces at work, I've discovered that human intelligence is, well, it's wonderful and it's a mixed blessing. It's really proved to be a very dangerous thing. I mean, I think it's wonderful. I mean, I still celebrate intelligence. A lot of the things that I appreciate, like the technology that allows me to sit in my downstairs, comfortable, and talk to the world. I mean, I don't have, or I don't know if I don't have the intelligence, but I certainly haven't developed any intelligence that would allow me to build all the stuff that goes into making this possible. And I think, in Hamlet's phrase, what a piece of work is man that people could do this. And I read science news. I've been reading science news for 30 years. And I think closer to 40, actually, what the James Webb telescope is showing us about the cosmos, this thing that's devouring like the equivalent of one sun every day, this black hole someplace they just discovered. I mean, Some people have said over the centuries that maybe God created human beings so there'd be somebody who would appreciate the work went into this cosmos, and it makes some sense to me. I'm not saying that I have a handle on knowing who created the universe or anything like that, but you know, if one were a god and one had created this universe, it would be really, I think, a big deal to have something out there that can understand, wow, what you did, and at lower levels besides creating the universe. My heroes include people like Shakespeare and Bach, uh, marvel uh, what their minds could do in creating vivid imagery and complex sets of meaning and musical ideas. What a piece of work is man because of our intelligence. Well, that is my way of introducing that. Um, at the heart of my life's work is a realization that I came to, um, which is represented by that book that came out in 1984 called The Parable of the Tribes, The Problem of Power in Social Evolution. And I didn't talk about human intelligence much there, but it's all what I've come to understand in the many years I've been working on developing that. What it shows is that, well, for one thing, I say the ugliness we see in human history is not human nature writ large. A lot of people I've discovered over the years of trying to convey that idea don't have any idea about how any whole can be more than the sum of its parts, or that some kind of a force that isn't a function of human nature could emerge because of what human beings do. But I feel like I can pretty well prove that that's the case. And another way of putting it is that our species took an unprecedented step. All the previous species on Earth were essentially required to behave in ways that were consistent with what they evolved to behave. They stay in the niche in which they evolved. Our species started inventing its own way of life, and what that book shows. To my satisfaction, and I've worked with this idea for more than half a century now, is that if you start inventing your way of life, you create a unprecedented situation. No species had ever invented its way of life out of its creative intelligence. And when you do the unprecedented, you create an unprecedented situation. And I'm not going to go into demonstrating step by step the implications of that. But I think that it's clear to me, and I think that if you go to my website, betterhumanstory.org, if it matters to you whether this is all true, it can be shown to your satisfaction that it is not because there is something wrong with us, but because we unleashed a systemic force of a destructive nature, that the history of us as a species over the last 10 or 12,000 years has been tormented and destructive, not because of our nature, but because of a systemic force that arose in the unprecedented situation that our unprecedented step created after a life had evolved for 3.5 billion years. So I say we're better creatures than we have thought ourselves to be, and I think that by itself would be important to know, even if it didn't also show what that destructive force was and how it remains operative in the human world, and it remains the thing that we need to bring under control if a human civilization is going to survive on this planet for a whole lot longer. And that it's not because of our nature, it's because we were the first creatures to develop the kind of level of creative intelligence that was necessary to extricate ourselves from the niche in which we evolved biologically by inventing our own way of life. First, gardening, horticulture, herding, gradually agriculture, larger societies, empires, and we're off to the races. And now we threaten ourselves with extinction, practically. No, probably not practically. I mean, if there were an all-out nuclear war, like almost happened in 1962, our creative intelligence would be the reason why we became the creatures able to essentially destroy ourselves and maybe the rest of life on Earth. I might say, incidentally, at this point, that for life to create a creature with our kind of intelligence was risky, not only for us, but life on Earth, not to personify that system, but it was a big gamble, or at least since nobody was laying bets when they developed a creature with our creative intelligence. It was a very dangerous thing for life to cross over into this new kind of life form that wasn't developed from natural selection, but was the fruit of a creative intelligence that's not surprising if you look at the whole process that the life might create something like us. But once it did, there's a danger that eventually it's going to bring the whole temple down on our heads like, some mighty Samson. Well, that's one of the ways in which our creative intelligence, as wonderful as it is also a dangerous thing in the human world that we've created. Civilization has been out of control and is still out of control. I don't mean that we don't exercise decisions and stuff like that, but we're sort of like off to the races in some kind of a downhill ski thing where we got to deal with trees and cliffs and all kinds of stuff that wasn't part of the bargain that our ancestors understood when their creative intelligence started doing these minor adjustments to life that wouldn't even have been visible to them. But they were creative enough to know, if we plant these seeds, they'll grow under our control. Doesn't sound dangerous, but it starts a process that pretty soon gathers momentum and starts the systemic force starts driving civilization to develop in certain directions that we couldn't avoid and we never would have chosen. That's what I claim that I've proved. And again, you can go to abetterhumanstory.org, and if it would matter to you to know that what I'm saying is true, were true, my job here in these videos is basically, as I see it, to get some people who would care to know if this better human story puts some of our most fundamental questions in an importantly different light, like what is our nature and why has our story been so destructive, and what do we got to do to survive on this planet in the not so many generations to come, where we better get our act together or we're going to blow it. So that's at the level of, will human civilization survive? I'm, if anything, more preoccupied for the last 20 years with the question, will American democracy survive? And it's in that context that the mixed blessing of human intelligence again comes into focus. We as a species, we have developed language as part of our general project of developing culture. And there are dangers that come with that. Let me read as it happens. This is February 24th, 2024 that I'm talking. And by some coincidence, I don't believe in, there's any cosmic thing going on, but this was published as an op-ed of mine 4 years ago today. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's after talking about some of the what a piece of work is man stuff, all these wonderful things that are that are part of the world that we have because of our intelligence. And here we are, we dominate the planet, and we're at the top of the food chain, as some people say, and we have such a hold of the planet in a way that no other life form ever had. Just look around the planet and you can see that because the creatures with this creative intelligence, not only have we unleashed this destructive force that I claim that can be shown as an inevitable part of stepping onto the path of civilization, but by becoming the civilization creating species, we become more and more dominant on the planet, with a lot of advantages for us. There are 8 billion of us on the planet now, which is probably a dangerous thing. Maybe it isn't sustainable. I don't know what people in that field are now saying is the Earth's carrying capacity, as the phrase goes. But, we've got a lot of advantages. The fact is that, at least in the affluent countries, we are capable of supporting a lot of people at a rather high level of comfort and with a rather long life expectancy. So more and more of us are dying because of the aging process that's sort of built into the organism rather than dying younger. We got a lot of advantages because of all that we've created with civilization. But on the other hand, we've got things like the chronic problem of war. We've got the chronic problems of injustice, and we've got the possibility that we'll destroy ourselves. But other species don't have some of these problems, and in particular, the one that has to do with the survival of American democracy. I've been looking at the power of the lie. The lie. Getting people to believe things that aren't true. I ran for Congress out here in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley before Trump arose. Trump is the prodigious liar, and he's been able to convince tens of millions of people of incredible things. Incredible, literally incredible. But somehow they credit them, like that the election was stolen and that he's being persecuted when he committed the most serious crimes in American history right in front of everybody's eyes. But people believe it. And people are vulnerable to that for a variety of reasons that can, I wrote another op-ed called What Makes People Vulnerable to the Lie. You can Google my last name and that title and you'll find stuff. But we're vulnerable to it, for one thing, because we are cultural creatures and we arrive at our beliefs through means of what our culture teaches us. That's part of what it is to be a cultural creature. Whereas, let me read. In our vulnerability to believing the lie, we human beings are like no other creature. Other animals can be deceived in a few ways. For example, traps can be set for an animal, which is a kind of deception, for it deceives the animal into believing it is safe to go where it is not. But overall, their beliefs are more reliably aligned with reality because they come by those beliefs through two means: what they're evolved to believe, and only beliefs that map in some valid way get selected for. I mean, I'm not sure what you can talk about the beliefs of animals, but you look at the nervousness of a rabbit, and the rabbit believes that the world is a dangerous place where it might become the meal of some fox or wolf or whatever. And so they're very twitchy because in some sense they believe the world is a dangerous place. They've evolved to believe that sort of a thing. Or they believe what their own experience has taught them to believe. And experience is also the fruit of reality. While other animals may not have a whole lot of beliefs, it seems safe to say that the proportion of their beliefs that are basically true is much higher than is often the case for us humans. For while we believe a great many valid ideas that other animals could not begin to understand, like believe in the gravitational pull of the sun in keeping the earth in its orbit, you're not going to find a non-human on this planet that believes that sort of thing. Our vulnerability to the lies we're told means that many of those beliefs might be false. We humans are vulnerable to the lie because our being cultural animals requires us to furnish our minds with many beliefs that are neither built into us by nature nor derived from our own experience. Our minds being built for culture, which is really why we've developed this creative intelligence. Culture and intelligence go hand in hand. We humans come by a lot of our beliefs through the communications we take in from our social environment. The new kind of mental flexibility required by a cultural creature provides a space into which evil, by which I mean a destructive force, can reach, using the power of the lie to implant false images of the world. And I go into some of the kinds of lies that are part of the political situation in America today. If you Google my name I did a video here recently called The Politics of Falsehood. All kinds of things that are believed that are simply not true. Often obviously not true, but whether obviously or not. Obvious, it's obvious to me, for example, like in one of my recent A Man on a Mission podcast to talk about guns. A lot of people believe, where I live in the Shenandoah Valley, a lot of people believe that if we were to regulate guns in any way, our liberties would be forfeit because the Second Amendment is the foundation of all of our rights. Well, you can look around the world and you can see lots of countries that have reasonable regulation of guns in the hands of civilians. They also have like 1/10 the number of gun deaths per 100,000 population that we've got. That is factual, but they believe that in spite of the fact that you can look around the world and see people who are just as free as we are, who have solved a lot better than we have the balance between individual rights and public safety. But anyway, so you can apparently persuade things of the truth about the truth of things by using language and clever ways that I don't necessarily fully understand how it works, but in the face of all kinds of evidence, you can a skilled propagandist can get lots and lots of people to believe things that are contradicted by evidence that's right in front of their eyes, like 60 court cases that showed that there wasn't a problem with voter fraud, and the election wasn't stolen from Trump. It was Trump who was trying to steal the election. Nonetheless, in addition to whatever else makes us vulnerable to believing lies, we human beings can be reached by language, and a false picture of the world can be painted in our minds that we will adopt as reality, even though it clearly contradicts reality. That's another way in which our creative intelligence that gives us so many things that are great to have, like going to the grocery store. A lot of intelligence goes into getting those things produced and onto the shelves and available so efficiently that we can, for the equivalent of a very short amount of our labor time, we can get food enough to sustain ourselves. In spite of those blessings, we also, because of our intelligence, we are also vulnerable to having a political system tell us all kinds of things that aren't true. The big lie was originally something that originated with the Nazi propagandists, and they're able to create scapegoats, make people believe that they are threatened by dangers that aren't there. Whereas the people who are doing the deceiving are really a source of danger, so that 12 years after the beginning of the Third Reich, hardly one stone is on top of another in the ruins of what had been the Nazi regime. And here we are in America right now, where we're worried. At least I'm worried. Well, a lot of people are worried. Pretty much everybody I know is worried that we might lose our democracy because tens of millions of our fellow citizens have been fooled by methods that require that they have an intelligence that can be reached with language, which makes us vulnerable to believing things that are false. So you can Google my name and the politics of falsehood, or go to my YouTube channel and put it, where you can search the channel. Put in the word falsehood and you can see what I mean. I did a study when I was in college of tragic drama. And one of the patterns that there is in the plays of the Athenians back, Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, the great tragedians of ancient Greece, and then go to Elizabethan England, where the tragedy again flourished. And one of the patterns is that the tragic hero is undone by the very thing that makes him strong, by his greatest asset. He gets destroyed. One example that comes to my mind is, I think it's Euripides that wrote a tragedy of Hercules, whose greatest strength is physical strength. But the gods, or the gods that don't like Hercules, drive him mad, and because of his strength, he's able to destroy his family, filled with an illusion about what happens. There is that pattern in tragedy, and I think that in the human story, that is one of the things that can be seen in our story. We are the creatures that evolved out of the mammalian line, out of the primate line, and before you get to us, we have ancestors that, like we parted from the chimpanzees. In the great picture of things, our primate ancestors were very intelligent, but then the process continues, and we start adopting the path of culture as our main strategy for survival. We start developing better tools, not just little sticks you can fish termites out of a termite nest, but more sophisticated tools. And we start developing apparently language, and you can see that in the fossil record about our vocal apparatus becoming something which enables us in terms of our jaws and our tongues and whatever else. I don't remember all the details. But we start evolving in the direction of culture, and that means that our brains are also becoming more and more central to our strategy for survival. And then, it's sort of a wonderful thing if you were watching from, I guess the earliest Homo sapien fossils nowadays, they're saying the 300,000 years ago in like Morocco, Spain area. If you follow that story, I mean, you could imagine some spectator who's watching this and saying, hey, look, something pretty nifty's going on here. But still, our ancestors were not, we're still living continuously, a hunter-gathering people, which is what we were up until 10 or 12,000 years ago, are basically living like primates. But then we take this step. We have the inventive, creative intelligence to take a step into a whole new situation, which unleashes a force that nobody could have anticipated. In fact, here we are, and I'm on a mission because not only did nobody anticipate it 10,000 years ago, but it is not yet recognized what the implications were of our taking that unprecedented step. And the only reason we could take that unprecedented step that unleashed a destructive force was that we had this marvelous creative intelligence, which is a mixed blessing. Well, that's my fire when ready video for today. I hope that you'll subscribe to my video business here, which should be easy to do according to people who are advising me how to enter into this brave new world. And I hope, especially since I'm really much better at laying out ideas in a compelling way in writing, which the younger people who have been pushing me in this direction tell me that's not how people get their ideas anymore. But if you can get ideas, that's where I do my best work. Go to abetterhumanstory.org, and you'll see that in the last 54 years, I've developed a way of understanding what's happened to our species that I do believe could help us to get our act together and survive on this planet for the long haul as a civilization, a human civilization, in a way that is good for us as human beings and protects the viability of life on this planet. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.